Okay, this is our next episode of True Wrestling Fan Discussions. We're going to be going over the WCW career of Eddie Guerrero. I'm your host, Mike.
I'm Frank, and let's get right to it. This is another one of my personal favorites. This guy could do it all. He could tell the story on the microphone. He could do it in the ring. Just everything he did personified greatness as far as in the cruiserweight division, as well as when he moved up to heavyweight and tag team. You wouldn't have thought it when you first start looking at him. When he first started out, you wouldn't think that he would turn into the kind of superstar and athlete he became later on. And of course, then his career was tragically cut short. And we'll get to that later on, back in 2005. He had a brief stint when he first started in 1995 with ECW. He was pretty much there for literally, I would say, a cup of coffee. You know, he was a two-time television champion, worked with Too Cold Scorpio, Dean Malenko. When Paul Heyman signed him, he knew he wasn't going to be there for long because Bischoff at the time was looking for cruiserweights, and especially in Lucha Libre, to bring onto Nitro to kind of open the show. And so he was there in ECW, I would say, about 5 months before moving on. He made his debut at World War III in 1995, the 60-man battle royal for the vacant WCW title. And it was actually pretty impressive because he made it to the final 9 in that, which you wouldn't think that a cruiserweight would make it that long, especially where Bischoff was another guy that would only push a certain few. Of
Guerrero is
course,
already
Savage was the winner of that one.
Guerrero is already well established in the industry though, from his days in Mexico and Japan. So
Yeah.
he was a known commodity, even though he didn't make it to mainstream. In the industry, he was already known. He came from the Guerrero family,
Oh, yeah.
wrestling family, huge wrestling family that wrestled in Mexico and everything. I think Guerrero might be from Texas. I think he grew up in Texas. I'm not sure.
Oh, well, I think where he's actually billed from is where he's from in El Paso.
I think that's where he's from. Yeah. So the family, big wrestling family, the uncles, the brothers.
Oh,
Um,
everybody, yeah.
I think his brother, which is Chavo Guerrero's father, was the gobbledygooker. I
See,
think,
yeah.
right?
I always
Yeah.
thought it was Owen Hart.
No, it wasn't Owen.
I,
No, I'm pretty sure
the
it was.
room, but before the Undertaker thought he was going to be it. You know,
Yeah.
Birdman. I thought I remember hearing at one point that Owen Hart dressed up to do it,
Mm,
but it was never really confirmed exactly who
yeah.
was under the mask.
I think it was Eddie's brother, which is Chavo's father, I believe.
And Chavo Guerrero Sr. was a great wrestler too. I mean,
Yeah.
that whole family, like you
Yeah.
said,
Yeah.
just unbelievable. So, in any event, now he had in 1995 he had the only televised appearance for him was World War III.
Hmm.
1996 rolls around for him. He received several shots at the U.S. title against Conan at Uncensored and Ric Flair at Hog Wild. So he was facing the upper talent.
Right.
And again, for a guy like Guerrero to face Ric Flair, that's pretty impressive. For Ric Flair,
Yeah.
if you look at his thing, it's why am I a mid carder? Why am I facing this guy? But I mean, those two were always good in the ring anyway, even in WWE.
Hmm.
He actually feuded with Flair during '96 when Arn Anderson turned on Guerrero. He was his tag team partner. This is when Flair and Arn Anderson were having their brief feud
Right. Right. Yeah.
when he left the Horsemen,
I remember
which
that.
we all know
Yeah.
it was all garbage. It was actually a tag team match. They faced it was Ric Flair and Randy Savage against Arn Anderson and Eddie Guerrero. Arn turned on him, so he had the feud with Flair. He had a late 1996 feud also with Diamond Dallas Page after defeating him at the Clash of Champions. In matter of fact, at Starrcade, he beat Diamond Dallas Page for the vacated U.S. title.
Sure.
And I love how every time we talk WCW, I'm always saying vacated title. It's redundant at this point.
That's typical.
Just assume every title match we tell you guys about,
Right,
it's vacated. So, and then yeah, for the vacated title, it was actually the finals of another tournament. Don't ask me what the tournament was about. I have no idea. In any event, now he's the U.S. champion going into 1997. So he defended the title against wrestlers such as Scott Norton at Clash of Champions, Six at Sold Out, Chris Jericho at Super Brawl 7. He lost the title at Uncensored to Dean Malenko. Now, him and Malenko were always in the ring together.
Yeah.
If it wasn't Malenko, it was Mysterio. If it wasn't Mysterio, it was Jericho. And the only problem in the cruiserweight division was Bischoff didn't see these guys really going anywhere other than that division, and that's unfortunate because some of these guys, they'll start there, but they don't want to have their whole career there.
Right.
And Vince McMahon kind of did that as well too with some of the cruiserweights, although it was a rare time where one of the cruiserweights actually was able to branch out and become something else. Two come to mind: Jericho and Mysterio. But with Bischoff, it was if you were a cruiserweight, you were unfortunately staying there. And with the U.S. title, if you remember back then in WCW, it was always if you were the U.S. champion, you were deemed the number one contender for the U.S. title, for the WCW title. Unfortunately, it's funny. Besides Luger, none of them ever got it.
No.
Especially a guy that comes to mind, Steve Austin.
Yeah, because the U.S. title was basically like the Intercontinental title.
Exactly.
Their version of it.
That was the stepping stone for something bigger. But when Guerrero had it, he never received a title shot. In any event, following his U.S. title loss to Dean Malenko, Guerrero feuded with Jericho, focusing now on the Cruiserweight Championship. After several failed attempts, he beat Jericho in the opening match of Fall Brawl to become the Cruiserweight Champion. He dropped the title to Rey Mysterio at Halloween Havoc the following month, and oh my God, if nobody has seen this match yet, I highly recommend you look it up on YouTube or on Peacock in about 6 years when they finally get around to putting WCW content on there.
Yeah, when they import all of the stuff.
Yeah, if they don't block it out. This match to me was one of Jericho's best ever. I mean, him and Mysterio, they always had great matches, but this one was by far their best. This was the best match for WCW, I would say, in 1997. Of course, they'll probably vote some Hogan, Sting, or Goldberg match. That's fine. But to me, this was the best match of the year. Because these two guys, when it was all said and done, they both got a standing ovation from the crowd.
Yep. Yeah, it was a great match.
So, and that match was actually title versus mask. So Mysterio had to put his mask on the line.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And I just love the outfit he had on. Mysterio is still known for some of the kookiest gimmick costumes ever. It was just great. On November 10th episode of Nitro, he regained the Cruiserweight title and successfully defended it against Mysterio at World War III. And again, every time these two guys got in the ring, you're watching this. And for me personally, on watching Nitro and flipping back and forth between that and Raw, when the Cruiserweights were on, I was watching them.
Yeah, definitely. I always was. Yeah, they really held everything together, man.
They were the glue that held that first hour of Nitro together.
Easily.
And then all the garbage came later. So, and then he lost the title December 29th on the episode of Nitro to the Ultimo Dragon, another great cruiserweight.
Yep.
I always got mad because when he finally showed up in WWE, he was never given his chance to shine. One pay-per-view, WrestleMania 20, and that was it.
I think he was already older and he was injured. I think he had like some really bad injuries by then.
Unfortunately, being a cruiser in the cruiserweight division, when you're doing all the high flying stuff, it's really hard not to get injured.
Mm-hmm.
So moving forward through 1998, on March 9th, 1998, on Nitro, he started a storyline involving his nephew Chavo. Chavo had now come into the mix. Chavo lost to Booker T that night, and Eddie suplexed him to teach him a lesson. He beat him up constantly. It was just funny. They had a match on 3 days later on Thunder, where he defeated Chavo and forced him to be his slave. This is just now typical WCW storylines, but it was funny how he was treating them.
Yeah, no, it was. And the funny thing is, that's his nephew, but they're only about 3 years apart, I think. They're
pretty close. So it's almost like they're brothers, not nephews.
Cousins, brothers, cousins,
Yeah. So Chavo had to help Eddie against Booker T for the television title at Uncensored, where Eddie lost. They both feuded with the Ultimo Dragon. Right. Chavo actually lost the Dragon at Spring Stampede, and then Eddie beat him in Slamboree. So it was like they were going back and forth. If you can't do it, I'll do it. They had a hair versus hair match at Bash at the Beach, which Eddie won. And Chavo went crazy and would shave his own head. And I remember that storyline because he was kind of going loco, no pun intended, over the next few weeks, just acting all sorts of weird.
Is that when he brought out like the pony? It was like a stick.
Yes.
And he was pretending that he was on a pony.
Yeah. Huh?
Oh God.
It worked for a minute.
But it was kind of funny, but then it was like okay.
It was WCW, bro.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want? So, going on from there, despite his success and popularity with the fans, Guerrero, like many wrestlers, was frustrated that he wasn't being pushed to the main event. And at this point, it was also Jericho was venting his frustration because you remember that episode of Nitro where he started hitting the chair up against the post.
Yeah.
And matter of fact, because of what he was saying and everything, it was like Shivani didn't even care because the music for Nitro was playing and they were promoting the upcoming commercial. They didn't even care that these guys were venting their frustrations and concerns. It's just, if your name wasn't Flair, Sting, Hogan, or Goldberg, when even Nash at the time, they just didn't care about you. You just do your job on that segment and get out of here. And that's unfortunate and that's one of the reasons why WCW is no longer in existence, because they never pushed their talent. By the time they decided to, whatever talent they had left, it was too late.
Yeah.
And a guy like Guerrero and Jericho, well, we've seen what they've done later on in their careers. Imagine what if WCW would have actually pushed these guys, what it would have become.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, he requested Bischoff to either push his character or give him a raise.
Right, he wanted more money, at least.
Yeah. Well, if I'm gonna constantly be the NWO's bitch and get a beat down and not get bumped up on the roster, at least pay me.
Yeah, but I mean,
keep me happy.
Yeah, but not only that, the fact that they were putting on such great matches, they should at least have been compensated for it. The fact how hard that they were working, it wasn't like they were just, not doing anything.
They were the people opening up Nitro, keeping the fans in the seat and entertained before they got disgusted with the disqualification of the main event.
Yeah.
So I agree with them. So Bischoff responded by supposedly throwing coffee at him, and this was a business meeting that they were having in the office because they actually this coffee segment that Guerrero did with himself in the ring. Get to that. The story is with Bischoff throwing the coffee on him. Guerrero explained in his autobiography later on that he accidentally knocked his coffee into him, and it was an accident. He was hit. So the whole thing got blown out of proportion with whoever leaked the story.
Well, it was the promo. It's because he cut the promo.
That was a week later they did it.
Yeah. So people thought that because it was a worked shoot, some of it was true about certain things, and then he just changed the story from he spilled it to he threw it on him. So then that's why the story picks up the traction that it does, because people thought that the whole promo was a shoot, which it wasn't.
Yeah. So with that, he was furious. He demanded his release on Nitro. He left for a few months, angry for what Bischoff had done, and then he then returned to WCW. And again, like you just said, this was all a work shoot. There was nothing personal between the two of them. So I honestly thought when I was watching it live, I'm like, wow, man, this is how he really feels about his employees. What the hell? You don't find out until later on, because again, the internet access back then had just, was just starting.
Yeah, it was just taking off.
We couldn't find out stuff like you can now. So Guerrero responded to Bischoff's actions by forming his own version, his own gang, the LWO.
Yeah.
The Latino World Order. And I kind of liked this for a brief second, at least when it first started. It was funny. Not as funny as when ECW did their BWO.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was okay. But I just felt like it was just overkill with the NWO, and the Wolfpack was around at that time too, right? So you have Wolfpack too.
1998, yeah.
Yeah, and then LWO.
So he said this was Guerrero said this was his answer to Bischoff not pushing Latin wrestlers in ways they deserved.
Right.
It formed in October of 1998, so yeah, the Wolfpack was already
Wolfpack's still around.
When he returned with Hector Garza and Damien. Now, if you're gonna do an LWO, at least try to get the top guys. I mean, he was getting guys that we only saw once twice a year on a pay-per-view, and that's mainly if they needed to fill a ring for the 60-man battle royal. I mean, otherwise, when did you really see these guys?
I mean, you couldn't. Conan. I mean, you couldn't get Conan because Conan was Wolfpack.
Yeah,
I think they
tried. Mysterio didn't want to do it.
He didn't want to do it. He didn't want to join.
So unfortunately, that's where it hit, because it wasn't guys that were actually known yet.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody really knew Hector Garza. I mean, everybody knows him, now, but back then it was like, who is he? So from the group actually grew to include almost all the Mexican wrestlers in WCW at the time, I believe the Lanos and guys like that they were using from time to time were all in it. They feuded mainly with Mysterio, who they wanted and wouldn't join. Kidman, and also Kidman, he was feuding with, who was the cruiserweight champion. So from there, unfortunately, Guerrero was involved in a car accident.
Yeah.
On New Year's Day '99, and the LWO storyline was pretty much cut short at that point because if he's not around, what's the point of doing it? That's a shame for him. Yeah, it was a bad car accident.
It was a bad car wreck, yeah.
So he was actually out for 5 months. He made his return on May 31st, '99. Guerrero became a founding member of the Filthy Animals at this point.
That's right, yeah.
And that I liked. I mean, that was really
filthy. The Filthy Animals were basically WCW's response to DX.
Yeah.
That's basically what they were. That's what they were intended to be, which is ironic because DX is a response to NWO. So
it's all good. Yeah, I know. It all keeps biting off each other. Well, you get China and then you got Asia. So, one is always going to copy over the other one.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, we had Jim Ross, they had Oklahoma.
Yeah, well, but that wasn't funny though.
No, it was. Well, at the beginning it was because the way the guy was just making an ass out of himself, trying to be Jim Ross, but really
stroke that wasn't funny.
No, that I did not like. Okay. That I thought crossed the line. But in the beginning, when they were just mimicking him, and I'm like, man, they're really desperate to do this. But when they started with the whole stroke thing, no, I didn't like that. So. In the Filthy Animals was Mysterio, Conan, and Kidman.
Yeah.
And their first feud was with the Deadpool. And if anybody doesn't know who they are, because I honestly didn't either, it was Insane Clown Posse.
I don't even know who the Deadpool.
And Vampiro.
I didn't.
Well, by this point, we're not really watching WCW.
Right, no, I was kind of
we're watching the Attitude Era.
Yeah, I mean, I would put it on here and there, but I wasn't really keeping up with it like that. No. I didn't remember that crew at all. All right.
That's because they didn't really do much. And to be honest, I never really thought the only way that Insane Clown Posse was going to wrestle was in WCW because WWE was never going to put them in the ring. They had them alongside the Oddities.
That's right.
For a minute.
Yeah,
but I mean, that was it for them. So they got 2 straight victories over them at Road Wild and Fall Brawl. I mean, I guess that's good for them considering it's the Insane Clown Posse, but hell, you and I can beat them. Next was the feud with the Revolution.
That I remember.
And I like this group. They had a good good core guys, and they should have been pushed too.
The Revolution started out good, but then they kind of changed the gimmick. Because at first they were guys that just never got a break in the business, and then it kind of turned into some political thing.
Yeah,
I remember it was kind of weird.
I always thought it was a knockoff because didn't they do something like that in WWE? And I was trying to remember it, and I couldn't remember the name of it. It didn't last long either. It was like Big Show, Mankind.
Come on, the Union?
Yes, there you go. I always thought this was almost a knockoff of that, but unfortunately, not knocking WWE, this was kind of a little better with the Revolution, considering the guys that they had.
Well, initially it was, and then it just went to the toilet like everything else in WCW.
It was Shane Douglas, Chris Benoit, Perry Saturn, and Dean Malenko.
Yeah.
And Guerrero defeated Saturn by DQ at Halloween Havoc. At Mayhem, one of my favorite pay-per-views, the Filthy Animals lost to Revolution in a mixed tag elimination match. It was Guerrero, Kidman, and Tori Wilson versus Malenko, Saturn, and who I just mentioned earlier, Asia.
Yeah.
So the China knockoff.
Yeah. She was bigger than China, though.
She was, but less talented.
Yeah, less talented, no charisma. Yeah.
Yeah, at least China was halfway decent in the ring.
Yeah.
Asia was just at this point they were really reaching to bite off everything they were doing. Unfortunately, when Vince Russo was fired as WCW Booker and replaced with Kevin Sullivan, and this is where they really went to shit.
Dungeon of Doom.
And Varsity Club. Let's not forget that. I know the Crickets. Everybody was like, who the hell is Varsity Club? Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Guerrero asked to be released at this point because he knew, because this was around the same time that, and it's funny how Vince Russo gets fired, Kevin Sullivan takes over the minute Benoit became the champion. And everybody knows the history between Benoit and Sullivan, basically over woman. And Sullivan did the one thing that you don't do in business. You mixed personal with business. And due to this, he was stripping Benoit of the championship.
No, but Sullivan was the one that put the belt on him. That was his decision to put the
But
belt.
he was also the one that was taking it off of him, too.
I don't think that came from him, though. Taking the
From
belt
Sullivan?
off. No, I don't think so. And I think he was already gonna leave anyway.
Cool.
Benoit had already made up his mind. I think that he was gonna leave.
Well, once the idea of him having to vacate the title, that was pretty much that was the last straw with him, and then the other guys fell in line with him.
Yeah, I have to look it up. It's been a while since I looked into this, but I think he had already made the decision. Them giving him the belt was kind of like a last, like, please stay kind of thing, and he had already. I'm pretty sure he had already made up his mind. I think I could be wrong, but
as far as I remember, going back to, I remember
Sid was upset about
looking this up a long time. Yes,
he was upset about it. Yeah, because he's like, this guy's a midget. Like, how's he gonna? He's gonna beat me.
Yeah, well, Sid was something to be desired back then with his math and his wrestling abilities. The Mr. One-legged dropkick off the top rope. In any event, on January 19, 2000, he was released, quickly signed by the WWE, along with Benoit, Malenko, and Saturn. And by this point, I think the WCW was really in trouble because now you just lost 4 of your hard workers, mid-card or not.
Yep.
You didn't push any of them. Now, granted, I never saw Malenko as world champion. Never saw Saturn as world champion. No. I saw Benoit as champion, but definitely. And I could see Eddie Guerrero if they would have kind of started pushing him a few years earlier. He could have been up at that caliber. Not saying he could have gotten over on Nash, but definitely Sting.
The problem back then, the industry was very different, and Guerrero was really small.
Yeah, he was.
And then, like, he was very lean. He was cut up, but he was very lean. Later on, when he goes to WWE, then he's like
almost overnight.
Yeah. So,
but I mean, if you look at his WCW career, I mean, it wasn't all that bad. He had a couple of title runs. U.S. champion. Yeah. He was cruiserweight champion. But like many of those guys, he just wasn't pushed.
He just wasn't pushed. But yeah, I mean, the matches, if you watch Eddie Guerrero, the thing about him was he never had a bad match. Like, every match that I remember him watching him in WCW, I didn't get up and walk away. No. I would stay there and I would watch them. They were always one of the best entertaining matches.
Even when he turned heel, I thought he was entertaining.
Yeah. No,
granted, not as entertaining as what he did in WWE later
on. Right. He came into his own once he left, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he had some of the greatest matches, cut some of the greatest promos, and nothing he did wrong there at all.
No, it's just it was
just Bischoff.
Wrong place, wrong time.
I think honestly, if he would have stayed in ECW, I think he would have gotten a shot with WWE soon after that. That probably would have been better off for him.
Maybe. I mean.
But, again, the Radicals, who they would be called in WWE, once they left, WCW had to know TikTok. Mm-hmm. It's coming to an end.
That was
when I saw them show up on Monday Night Raw, I was like, oh my God. I'm like, this is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is on. We got so many new feuds that we can do here. Because at that point, going into the Royal Rumble, and I went to the 2000 Royal Rumble. I went there knowing who was going to be the Royal Rumble winner. There was no doubt about it. There was nobody in that Rumble that was going to win it other than The Rock. And I was furious about it because it was too predictable. And at that point, it was not getting stale, but the main event quality was kind of because Undertaker wasn't there. Austin was out. It was really just The Rock to feud with Triple H. And when these guys came in, I'm like, okay, Benoit was the first one that came to mind. I said, okay, he could face Triple H and The Rock and make this a little bit more interesting. And even Guerrero can probably do it. So, I mean, at the beginning of 2000, to me, I just think they needed that. They needed the Radicals to come in at this point.
Yeah.
With all the injuries and stuff. I was kind of hoping Big Show won the Rumble anyway, to be honest, just to shake things up. And technically he did. But that's for another day.
Yeah, so that's pretty much Eddie Guerrero's WCW story. Our next video we're going to cover when he shows up in WWE with the Radicals. So you guys let us know what you think about
Mamacita.
Yep, let us know what you think about Eddie Guerrero, his career, your favorite moments in WCW. Please like, comment, share, subscribe. We'll see you guys soon.
Take care, guys.